There's a prison that has no walls, no bars, no guards. It exists inside your chest. And every day, you wake up and step into it voluntarily. You wear the chains you forged with your own mind. You tell yourself it's justice. You tell yourself it's penance. You tell yourself you're just taking responsibility. But that's not what it is. It's self-inflicted punishment, disguised as morality. You've mistaken guilt for discipline, pain for growth, and shame for accountability. And because of that, you've turned yourself into your own executioner. The silent sentence. Guilt is a parasite. It feeds off your moments of reflection and turns them into self-destruction. It takes a single mistake and convinces you it defines your entire identity. You replay the event in your head 1,000 times, hoping repetition will rewrite the outcome, but it never does. You build stories about what others must think of you. You imagine their whispers, their judgment, their distance. You feel it when they look away, when they don't respond fast enough, when they seem distracted. And in those moments, your mind decides, they must hate me. They must see me as weak, broken, unworthy. But here's the truth few are brave enough to face. Most of what we assume about others' opinions are just reflections of our own self-condemnation. You've become the author of a story that only exists in your head. The world isn't holding you down. Your own perception is. You've turned assumptions into facts, emotions into evidence, silence into verdicts. You've imprisoned yourself in a world of ghosts, the mirage of control. We cling to guilt because it gives us a twisted sense of control. If I keep feeling bad, I can somehow undo what I did. If I keep suffering, I prove I'm sorry. If I punish myself long enough, maybe I'll be worthy again. No, that's not control. That's stagnation disguised as virtue. You cannot change what has already been written, but you can change who you are because of it. You can't erase the past. You can only make peace with it. But the peace won't come through avoidance. It'll come through vulnerability. Through having the courage to say, yes, I did wrong. I'm not proud, but I refuse to let this define my soul. The strength of vulnerability. We live in a world that rewards perfection, but forgets honesty. We think strength means stoicism, that we must never show weakness, never admit pain. But here's the paradox. The greatest strength you'll ever show is vulnerability, without the expectation of forgiveness. Because that's real courage. To open your chest and say, I hurt someone, or I failed, or I was lost. Not to be absolved, but to release the poison of secrecy that's been rotting your spirit. You don't need someone else to say, it's okay. You need to learn how to look in the mirror and say, I understand. I accept. I will do better. Some wounds never get external closure. Some apologies will never be accepted. And that's fine. You're not here to control other people's healing. You're here to reclaim your own. The standard that's crushing you. You've been holding yourself to a standard no human could ever meet. You set the bar so high that even your best effort feels like failure. You measure your worth not by growth, but by perfection. And that's why you're tired. That's why you're never enough. You forget that you were never meant to be flawless. You were meant to learn. You were meant to break and rebuild. You were meant to fall so that you could stand differently next time. Wiser, stronger, calmer. And yes, you should have done better. But now you can. That's the difference between guilt and responsibility. Guilt drowns you in what was. Responsibility elevates you into what could be. So raise your standards, but don't weaponize them against yourself. Use them as guidance, not judgment. Embrace the pain. Don't become it. Pain is not your enemy. It's a teacher. It's the echo of your conscience trying to realign you. But it becomes poison when you linger too long inside it. You are not meant to live inside your suffering. You're meant to extract its lesson and move forward. Sit with it long enough to understand it, then rise. Don't run from the pain. Don't bury it under distractions or numbness. Look it in the eye and ask, "What are you trying to teach me?" And when you find that answer, act on it. Turn that pain into discipline. Turn that remorse into better decision-making. Turn that regret into wisdom. That's how redemption works. It's not about forgetting what happened. It's about no longer being ruled by it. Control what you can, release what you can't. When your mind feels chaotic, when the storm of guilt becomes unbearable, return to the basics. Sleep, breathe, move, eat clean, work with intention. Ground yourself in the fundamentals. Control what's in your reach. Your thoughts, your habits, your next decision. That's the domain of power. The rest, what people think, what's already been said, what's already been lost. Release it. You cannot steer a ship by fighting the waves. You steer it by mastering the helm. Focus on what you can control, and you'll be amazed how much calmer the sea becomes. Your freedom begins where your control ends. When you accept that not everything can be fixed, you stop drowning and start floating. The human beneath the weight. At the end of all this, beneath the layers of guilt, beneath the perfectionism, beneath the fear, there's a human being who's just trying to do better. You are not evil. You are not irredeemable. You are not broken beyond repair. You are human, and humanity is messy, complicated, flawed, but beautiful. The fact that you feel guilt at all means you have a conscience that still works. It means you care. It means you still have light in you, no matter how dim it feels right now. So stop torturing yourself. You've already proven you care. Now prove you can evolve. That's the only real atonement there is. Return to the basics. When everything feels like it's falling apart, return to simplicity. Drink water. Go outside. Write down what you're grateful for. Reach out to someone without needing validation. Forgive yourself without needing approval. Rebuild from the ground up. From the smallest acts of stability. Because no matter how dark the night feels, your redemption starts with one simple truth. You still have control over what you become next. The final truth. You are not the same person who made those mistakes. You've evolved. You've shed versions of yourself that no longer serve you. Stop dragging their corpses along. Guilt will tell you that you owe your past pain more attention, but you owe your future peace more effort. So tonight, free yourself. Unshackle the mind. Let the chains of guilt fall and echo into silence. You are not here to suffer endlessly for your humanity. You are here to rise in spite of it. Step 1. Face the guilt without judgment. There's a reason this step comes first. It's the hardest one, the one most people avoid, because it forces you to look at the ugliest reflection of yourself and not look away. See, guilt is a clever enemy. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It hides beneath your thoughts, infecting every moment of silence. It makes you flinch at the sound of your own name. It convinces you that you are undeserving of peace, that you must continue to suffer to balance out your mistakes. But the longer you avoid it, the deeper it roots itself into your subconscious. So, face it. Not with self-hatred, but with clarity. 1.1. Step into the mirror. Sit down somewhere alone. No noise, no distractions. Just you and your truth. Think about what's eating at you. The words you said, the actions you regret, the people you hurt, the promises you broke. Don't rationalize. Don't defend. Just look. This is not an interrogation. It's an unveiling. You've spent enough time trying to hide from what's already part of your story. The goal here isn't to judge yourself. It's to understand what happened. Because without understanding, you can't transform it. You'll feel resistance. You'll feel that tightening in your chest, that urge to escape. Stay. Breathe through it. Because that discomfort is proof that you're still alive enough to care. That's not weakness. It's the signal of awakening. 1.2. Separate the act from the identity. You made a mistake. Maybe several. Maybe unforgivable in the eyes of others. But you are not the mistake itself. The act is something that happened. It's a part of your past, not the definition of your being. You must separate what you did from who you are. When you say, "I am terrible," you fuse your identity with the act. You make it eternal. But when you say, "I did something terrible," you create distance. You reclaim the power to change. This is how warriors evolve. Not through denial, but through dissection. Breaking down the truth until the poison becomes medicine. Every scar is a lesson in disguise. And the ones that ache the most, those are the ones meant to shape the strongest version of you. 1.3. Acknowledge without indulging. Here's where people lose themselves. They either bury guilt or bathe in it. One denies it, pretending nothing happened. The other worships it, turning remorse into identity. Both paths lead to ruin. You must walk the middle path. Acknowledge your guilt, but don't feed it. Tell yourself, "Yes, I did this. It hurt me. It hurt others. But I refuse to let it define every moment moving forward." Guilt should be like fire. It burns to purify, not to consume. You must learn to control the flame, or it will devour everything. That balance requires maturity. Emotional control born from stillness. When you stop fighting guilt and instead learn from it, something shifts. The energy you once spent punishing yourself transforms into strength. You begin to see the lesson beneath the pain. 1.4. Recognize the illusion of punishment. Ask yourself a hard question. Why am I still punishing myself? Who declared that you must keep suffering? Was it God, society, the person you wronged? Or was it your own belief that you're not worthy of release? Guilt tricks you into thinking that if you feel bad long enough, you're doing the right thing, that your suffering somehow redeems you. But that's not redemption. That's emotional self-torture. Punishment without purpose is just pain. And if pain doesn't lead to progress, it's nothing more than spiritual rot. Real accountability is action. It's not crying about what you've done. It's choosing to live differently because of what you've done. It's not wallowing in the ashes. It's building something better on top of them. So stop confusing self-destruction for morality. The world doesn't need another martyr of guilt. It needs a warrior who's willing to grow. 1.5. The warrior's reflection. When you face your guilt with discipline instead of despair, you enter the warrior's realm. This is the stage where clarity sharpens the soul. You stop running from the darkness and begin commanding it. Think of guilt as an internal signal, your conscience reminding you that you're capable of better. But once the message is received, release it. You don't stay at the battlefield after the fight is over. You don't keep stabbing yourself with the same blade that once cut you. Forgive yourself not to escape responsibility, but to accept it fully and move forward. That's what separates the weak from the wise. The courage to face what was and still choose to rise. When you look into the mirror again, you'll notice something strange. The reflection that once terrified you will begin to look human again. Not perfect, not saintly, just human. And that's where the rebuilding begins. 1.6. Practical implementation. Facing guilt isn't only emotional, it must become tangible. Here's how you begin integrating this into daily life. Daily reflection. Each night, take 5 minutes to reflect. Not to criticize, but to analyze. Ask, what did I do well today? What can I improve tomorrow? Journaling the truth. Write down the things that still haunt you. Seeing them on paper strips them of their invisible power. Voice the confession. Tell your truth to someone you trust, or even record it privately. The act of vocalizing pain releases the pressure it holds. Forgive intentionally. Every morning, look in the mirror and say, I am doing better. Even if you don't believe it yet, the repetition will begin to rewire the self-concept buried under guilt. Transform the energy. When guilt tries to consume you, redirect it. Go for a walk, train your body, study something new. Convert emotional energy into productive energy. That's how you start to face guilt without drowning in it. That's how you turn guilt from an executioner into a mentor. 1.7. Closing reflection. You can't heal from what you won't face. You can't move forward carrying a ghost that doesn't exist anywhere except in your mind. Your past already happened, but your interpretation of it is still being written. When you face guilt without judgment, you begin rewriting that story. You realize you don't need permission to heal. You don't need someone else's forgiveness to live again. You only need the courage to look in the mirror and whisper, I see what I've done. I understand why I did it. And I am done living there. That's the first step to freedom. That's where your redemption begins. Step 2. Communicate vulnerability without expectation. The second step is where the mask begins to crack, where the armor you've built to survive must be shed if you truly want to heal. Vulnerability. The very word makes people flinch. It feels like weakness, exposure, danger, because the world has conditioned us to believe that being open means being fragile. But that's a lie. True vulnerability is not weakness. It's the highest form of strength. It's standing naked in front of your past, your mistakes, your fears, and saying, here I am. I won't hide anymore. Most people will never get this far. They'll rather die behind a mask of pride than speak their truth aloud. But you, if you're serious about freeing yourself from guilt, this is the battlefield where you fight your own ego. 2.1. The lie of isolation. Guilt feeds on isolation. It grows in the silence between your heart and your tongue. You think, no one will understand. Or worse, they'll think less of me if I tell them. And so you stay quiet. You build walls. You create a false image. Someone strong, composed, untouchable. But behind closed doors, you crumble. The mind replays every sin, every failure. The voice of guilt grows louder, unchallenged. Understand this. What you hide will always control you. What you speak loses its power. You've been living in emotional quarantine, locking away the truth like it's a disease. But the truth doesn't kill, it cures. The silence is what kills you. When you find the courage to speak, even to one person, you puncture that darkness with light. You create space for healing to begin. 2.2. The power of confession. Without expectation, vulnerability becomes corrupted when you attach an outcome to it. You tell your truth, but deep down, you want forgiveness. You crave validation. You hope someone says, "It's okay." That's not real vulnerability, that's bargaining. Real vulnerability is speaking your truth without expecting anything back. You do it because carrying silence has become too heavy. You do it to free yourself, not to control the reactions of others. This is where most fail. They open up expecting applause, sympathy, or redemption. But the world doesn't owe you that. You speak not because you want to be understood, but because you refuse to live a lie any longer. When you drop expectations, something beautiful happens. Your words become pure. They carry no manipulation, no agenda, just truth. And truth, when spoken from the soul, carries a vibration that cuts through everything false. 2.3. The alchemy of honesty. There is an alchemy in honesty. A transformation that takes place when raw truth meets open air. When you communicate vulnerability, whether through a conversation, a letter, a prayer, or even a voice memo to yourself, you shift energy from repression to expression. That shift alone begins to dissolve guilt, because guilt thrives in secrecy. It multiplies in the shadows. But the moment you name it, it weakens. You might notice your chest loosen, your breath deepen, your thoughts slow. That's not coincidence. That's release. You've turned poison into medicine by refusing to let it fester. You don't need an audience. You just need honesty. Write a letter you'll never send. Speak aloud to the mirror. Whisper it into the void. Do whatever you must to make truth audible again. And understand, the act of expression is sacred. It's how you reclaim your humanity from the dungeon of guilt. 2.4. Releasing the fear of rejection. One of the deepest fears and vulnerability is the fear of being rejected or misunderstood. What if they don't forgive me? What if they think I'm weak? What if they never look at me the same way again? And yes, maybe they won't. But that's not your battle anymore. Their forgiveness is not your salvation. Your honesty is. Their understanding is not your freedom. Your self-acceptance is. You must stop holding your healing hostage to someone else's reaction. You can't control whether they heal. You can only control whether you evolve. And if they do turn away, then that's proof they were never meant to carry the truth with you. Let them go. You'll lose people, yes, but you'll find yourself. And that's the only person who must return. 2.5. Vulnerability as rebirth. Every time you open your heart and speak from it, you shed an old layer of self. The false persona dies a little more. The guilt-ridden version fades. And what's left? Someone real, someone lighter. You begin to realize vulnerability isn't about exposure. It's about evolution. It's not about being seen by others. It's about seeing yourself clearly for the first time. You stop hiding behind control, behind defensiveness, behind coldness. You allow yourself to feel. You let emotions flow instead of pretending they don't exist. And that rawness, that emotional authenticity, is the soil where self-respect grows again. When you speak your truth, you declare, "I no longer fear myself." And when that happens, the chains of guilt can no longer hold you. 2.6. How to practice. Vulnerability. Daily. Start small. Tell the truth in small moments. Admit when you're wrong. Speak honestly about what you feel instead of masking it with sarcasm or withdrawal. Journal without editing. Let the pen bleed. Don't try to sound wise. Write the truth as it is, not as you wish it were. Confide in one person, someone you trust, not to fix you, but to witness you. Tell them something you've never said out loud. The act of being seen dissolves layers of shame. Speak to yourself. Record voice notes when emotions hit hard. Sometimes you don't need an audience, just acknowledgement. Drop the outcome. Whenever you express something, release the expectation of reaction. Do it as an act of release, not manipulation. Each act of honesty weakens guilt's grip and strengthens your soul's integrity. Vulnerability becomes your weapon, not your wound. 2.7. The Warrior's Code of Vulnerability. A true warrior knows when to fight and when to kneel. There's strength in battle, but there's equal strength in confession. You cannot master the external world if you're enslaved by secrets within. The warrior who hides his scars lives divided. The one who exposes them becomes whole. When you speak your truth, you are not lowering your defenses. You are sharpening them. You are aligning your inner world with your outer self. You are saying to the universe, I will no longer pretend. I will no longer carry the weight of silence. You are not seeking pity. You are seeking peace. And peace does not come from avoidance. It comes from honesty, discipline, and release. 2.8. Closing reflection. When you communicate vulnerability without expectation, you reclaim your power from the very thing that once enslaved you. You stop seeking redemption from others and start building it within. This is not about weakness. It's about strength without arrogance. It's about walking into your own darkness and declaring, I am done pretending. I will not carry lies any longer. Once you learn to speak the truth without needing a response, you become untouchable. You become free. The warrior within you rises, not because the world forgave you, but because you finally forgave yourself. Step 3. Challenge the assumptions that control you. Assumptions. Silent architects of chaos. They build prisons inside our minds brick by brick, each one laid by fear, insecurity, and guilt. And if you don't challenge them, they will dictate every decision you make. You see, assumptions are invisible chains. They convince you that you know what others think, that you understand how the world sees you, that your guilt is justified because everyone must hate you. But in truth, it's not the world judging you. It's you judging yourself through their imagined eyes. This is one of the deepest forms of self-sabotage, fighting enemies that exist only in your own head. 3.1. The mind's deception. Your mind is a master illusionist. It takes small details, an unread message, a distant glance, an awkward silence, and builds entire stories out of them. It fills in blanks with fear. It turns uncertainty into accusation. You start believing, they don't respect me. They're still angry. They must be thinking about what I did. But how often are those thoughts verified? How often have you actually asked? Most of the time, your mind creates these assumptions as a defense mechanism to prepare you for rejection, to justify your self-punishment, to make the world predictable. Because the mind would rather believe a painful lie than face an uncertain truth. So you cling to those false narratives because at least they feel familiar. But familiarity doesn't equal reality. And every day you live by these assumptions, you hand over your freedom to ghosts. 3.2. The cost of unchallenged thoughts. Every assumption comes with a price: peace. When you don't challenge your thoughts, they become law. And the more you repeat them, the deeper they etch themselves into your subconscious identity. You begin reacting to things that never happened. You avoid people who never judged you. You sabotage relationships because you've already decided they'll fail. You imprison yourself in imagined consequences. And here's the tragedy. You'll defend those false beliefs like they're sacred truth. Because your mind doesn't seek truth. It seeks consistency. And if you've lived with guilt long enough, your mind has made self-condemnation feel consistent. So when peace tries to enter, you reject it because it feels foreign. That's how people stay trapped for decades. Not by external judgment, but by internal repetition. 3.3. The discipline of doubt. To challenge assumptions, you must learn the discipline of doubt. Not doubt in your worth, but doubt in your thoughts. Every time a negative belief arises, stop and interrogate it. Ask, is this thought factual or emotional? Do I have proof, or am I projecting fear? Would I believe this if someone else said it about themselves? You'll be surprised how often the answer is no. And that's the point. Your assumptions lose power the moment you demand evidence. Train yourself to pause before reacting. Because between an event and your reaction lies a sacred gap. That's where power lives. Most people fill that gap with emotion and assumption, but the disciplined fill it with analysis. That's where you begin to reclaim your mind. 3.4. The mirror of projection. One of the darkest truths you'll face is that assumptions about others often reflect what you secretly believe about yourself. When you think, they must hate me, what you're really saying is, I still hate myself. When you assume, they think I'm weak, you're revealing your own belief that you are. This is the mirror effect of guilt. It projects inward shame outward. So it feels like the world is the enemy. But when you challenge that reflection, when you look closer, you'll realize most people aren't thinking about you at all. They're too busy battling their own storms. Freeing yourself from assumptions means reclaiming emotional responsibility. You stop expecting others to define your value and start defining it yourself. You stop reading their silence as rejection and start reading it as neutrality. The world is rarely as cruel as the voice in your head. Silence is not always judgment. Distance is not always anger. And the absence of validation does not mean the absence of love. 3.5. Reprogramming the mind. You've lived under assumption long enough. It's time to retrain your mind to see truth instead of fear. This requires consistency. It's not a single revelation. It's a daily discipline. Here's how you start. Label your thoughts. When an assumption arises, say it out loud. This is a thought, not a fact. This separates identity from illusion. Seek clarification. If the assumption involves another person, ask them. Stop writing their dialogue in your head and start communicating. Observe. Don't absorb. When you sense judgment, step back. Ask yourself if it's truly directed at you, or if your guilt is amplifying neutral behavior. Challenge catastrophic thinking. The mind loves extremes. When it tells you everyone thinks badly of me, demand specifics. Who exactly? When? Evidence? Replace reaction with reflection. Before you spiral, take a breath. Write the assumption down and question it logically. You'll begin noticing that most of your fears crumble under examination. They were shadows all along, nothing more. 3.6. The warrior's lens. The warrior understands that perception is both a weapon and a weakness. If your perception is clouded by fear, you will strike blindly. You'll see enemies where there are allies. But if your perception is sharpened by clarity, you become unstoppable. To challenge assumptions is to polish the blade of awareness. You no longer fight phantoms. You strike with precision. You no longer waste energy defending against illusions. You conserve it for creation. The warrior sees the battlefield of the mind and refuses to be manipulated by shadows. He questions every thought, every feeling, every impulse until only truth remains. That's how you gain mental control. That's how you move through life like a strategist instead of a victim. Because guilt makes you reactive, but awareness makes you sovereign. 3.7. The collapse of false narratives. When you finally confront your assumptions, something profound happens. The false narratives begin to collapse. You realize how much of your suffering was self-inflicted. You see how many relationships could have been saved if you just asked instead of assumed. You recognize that most of your enemies existed only in your imagination. That realization can break you for a moment, but it will also free you. Because now you see the truth. You were never hated. You were never exiled. You were never alone. You were trapped in a story that wasn't real. And once that illusion dies, the mind becomes quiet. Not empty, peaceful. That's when real perception begins. That's when you finally see people and yourself as they are, not as your guilt painted them to be. 3.8. Closing reflection. Assumptions are the silent chains that keep you tethered to guilt. They make you believe the world condemns you when, in truth, it's only your own voice echoing back at you. To break those chains, you must become a detective of your own thoughts. You must challenge every conclusion your mind presents until only reality remains. Because freedom isn't found in control, it's found in clarity. And clarity begins when you stop believing every thought that passes through your mind. When you finally master this step, guilt loses its illusion of power. You stop reacting to ghosts. You stop running from imagined rejection. You begin living in truth, raw, unfiltered, and sovereign. That's the essence of freedom. To see clearly, to act deliberately, to stop living inside your own assumptions and start living inside your own reality. Step 4. Convert the pain into discipline. There comes a point in every warrior's journey where the pain becomes unbearable, where guilt, regret, and disappointment sit heavy on the chest, like armor made of lead. Most people collapse under that weight. They drown in self-pity. They beg for escape. But the disciplined do something different. They don't run from the pain. They repurpose it. They turn it into energy, into structure, into motion. This is where transformation begins. Not in comfort, not in forgiveness, but in the decision to use the pain instead of being used by it. 4.1. The turning point. Every story of redemption begins with a single shift. The realization that pain itself can become your greatest weapon. You've already suffered. You've already paid the emotional price. So why let that suffering end in waste? Pain, when left unchecked, decays. It turns into bitterness, resentment, self-loathing. But when focused, when harnessed, it becomes something sacred. It becomes the fire that tempers you. Look at your pain as raw fuel. Every regret, every sleepless night, every ache in your chest, that's energy waiting to be redirected. You can let it rot, or you can use it to build a foundation stronger than anything that came before. You are not here to avoid pain. You are here to master it. 4.2. Rebellion against weakness. Discipline begins as rebellion, not against the world, but against your own weakness. You must understand something. The mind's default state is comfort-seeking. It will do anything to avoid discomfort, even if that means sabotaging your future. So the first act of power is defiance. When guilt whispers, "You're worthless," respond with work. When regret tells you, "It's too late," respond with action. When pain says, Give up. Respond with consistency. Because the truth is, emotion cannot be reasoned with. It must be trained. And training requires repetition, not motivation. You must build discipline like armor. Routine becomes your sanctuary. Effort becomes your prayer. And every act of discipline, waking up early, journaling, exercising, working, becomes a quiet rebellion against the part of you that wants to stay broken. That's how you rise. Not with sudden inspiration, but with small acts of control, repeated until they forge a new identity. 4.3. The forge of consistency. Pain burns hot at first, but emotion fades. That's why so many people start strong and crumble when the feeling wears off. You must go beyond emotion into principle. Discipline is not built in the fire of passion. It's built in the cold silence of repetition. You won't always feel inspired. You won't always feel capable, but you must act anyway. Each day that you follow through, even when it hurts, even when you don't want to, you harden your spirit. You turn pain into predictability. You turn chaos into control. You become dependable to yourself again. And that's everything. Because the moment you can depend on yourself, guilt loses its leverage. You no longer spiral in shame. You channel it into structure. You no longer wallow in emotion. You translate it into movement. Every rep, every page written, every early morning, every moment of discomfort. That's the redemption process. You're proving to your subconscious, I've changed. And once the subconscious believes that, healing follows naturally. 4.4. The science of transmutation. Energy never disappears. It only changes form. Pain is energy. Guilt is energy. Regret is energy. So when you sit in misery, that energy festers. When you act with purpose, it transforms. This is what I call emotional alchemy, the art of converting darkness into discipline. When you feel pain, don't react with pity. React with movement. Push yourself. Create something. Build something. Clean something. Train your body. Channel it immediately before your mind turns it toxic. Understand this. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is sacred order. It's how chaos is turned into strength. If you've hurt people, discipline is how you make it right. If you've betrayed yourself, discipline is how you earn your own trust back. If you've lost everything, discipline is how you build again, brick by brick, from nothing. The disciplined mind is untouchable because it knows what to do with pain. It doesn't waste it. It weaponizes it. 4.5. The ritual of redemption. Every day must become a ritual, not an act of guilt, but of transformation. Because redemption is not a single event, it's a practice. Wake up early, move your body, breathe deeply, make your bed, write your thoughts down, set your goals, work your craft. Do it even when you feel hollow. Do it especially when you feel hollow. Because every small act of control tells your brain, I am no longer powerless. You can't rewrite your past, but you can rewrite your habits. And when your habits change, your destiny follows. The warrior doesn't seek to feel better. The warrior seeks to become better. And as you become better, the old pain starts to lose its sting. Not because it's gone, but because you've surpassed it. Your new habits, your new discipline, your new standards. They make the old version of you irrelevant. You don't have to destroy that old version. You simply outgrow it. 4.6. The law of control. When you begin living with discipline, you regain the most valuable resource of all, control. And control is what guilt steals first. When you live by guilt, everything feels external. You feel like life is happening to you. But when you live by discipline, everything feels internal. Life begins to happen through you. You stop reacting to chaos and start orchestrating it. You stop waiting for motivation and start manufacturing it. You stop being defined by how you feel and start being defined by what you do. Discipline becomes the bridge between pain and power. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting, but it's sacred. Because every act of discipline is an act of faith in yourself. Faith that you are capable of redemption, capable of change, capable of control. And when that faith grows stronger than the guilt that once ruled you, you become unstoppable. 4.7. The warrior's ritual. The warrior's life is not free of pain. It's full of it. But every blow, every scar, every sleepless night becomes part of their armor. They wake up early not because it's easy, but because the pain taught them to value structure. They train their body not out of vanity, but because discipline taught them to honor strength. They control their thoughts, not because they're emotionless, but because chaos once ruled them, and they will never go back. The warrior's discipline is born from fire, from guilt, from regret, from every failure that nearly broke them. They no longer seek comfort. They seek command. They no longer crave pity. They crave progress. Their mantra becomes simple: I will not waste my pain. 4.8. Closing reflection. Pain can destroy you, or it can define you, but only discipline can redeem you. Every time you take action when it hurts, you reclaim a piece of your soul. Every time you turn regret into effort, you rewrite your destiny. You can't escape pain, but you can convert it. You can't undo the past, but you can use its ashes to forge something greater. The difference between the broken and the reborn is what they do with the fire. Some let it burn them alive. Others learn to walk through it until they become flame themselves. So remember this: pain is not punishment. It's potential. And once you learn to control it, once you turn it into discipline, nothing, not guilt, not fear, not the past, can ever control you again. Step 5. Release control and return to the basics. At the end of every battle, when the war inside your mind has burned through everything, you're left standing in silence. No noise, no audience, no illusions of control. That's where this final step begins. Because after all the fighting, all the guilt, all the striving to fix what cannot be undone, there comes a moment when you must face the hardest truth of all. You were never meant to control everything. You can master your habits. You can discipline your body. You can train your thoughts. But life itself, the outcomes, the people, the chaos, will always remain outside your grasp. Freedom begins when you accept that. 5.1. The illusion of control. Guilt thrives on the illusion of control. It whispers, if you just suffer long enough, you can undo the past. It lies to you, telling you that if you punish yourself enough, you'll somehow reset what's already happened. That's a trap. The mind's final trick to keep you enslaved. You cannot rewrite yesterday. You cannot dictate how others see you. You cannot choreograph life into perfection. And yet, that's what guilt demands. Total control over what was, what is, and what might be. The result? Exhaustion. You spend your days gripping tighter, trying to manage outcomes that were never yours to hold. You spiral. You overthink. You force everything. You mistake control for power, when true power lies in the release. The moment you stop clenching your fists around everything that isn't yours to command, that's when your hands become free to build what is. 5.2. The serenity of surrender. Surrender is not defeat. It's precision. It's the ability to recognize what's within your dominion and what isn't. The weak resist what they can't control. The strong adapt to it. The wise flow with it. You see, most people think letting go means giving up. But in truth, it means recalibration. It means channeling your energy where it matters most. You stop wasting energy on ghosts. You stop trying to control perception, outcomes, and approval. You start focusing on what's real. This is where clarity begins to form. The noise quiets. The tension in your shoulders releases. The heart begins to beat steadily again. You remember that life isn't about domination. It's about alignment. You don't need to force what's meant for you. You just need to become the version of yourself capable of receiving it. Letting go isn't passive. It's mastery. It's saying, I choose to stop fighting the storm, and instead, I'll learn to sail through it. 5.3. Reconnecting with the fundamentals. When everything feels chaotic, when the noise of your mind grows unbearable, return to the basics. The basics are your anchor. They're what remind you that you're still human, that you're still capable of peace. Start small. Breathe deeply. Hydrate. Sleep. Move your body. Eat real food. Step outside and feel sunlight on your face. Don't underestimate these simple acts. They are not meaningless routines. They are rituals of grounding. You don't rebuild your life through massive leaps. You rebuild it through small, consistent, honest actions that pull you out of your head and back into reality. You've been living in abstraction, guilt, fear, assumptions, control. But the basics bring you back to the physical world. They remind you that you're not just a mind haunted by memory. You're a living being capable of presence. The more you return to the fundamentals, the stronger your foundation becomes. And once that foundation is steady again, clarity follows naturally. 5.4. The discipline of acceptance. Acceptance is not the same as apathy. It's not shrugging your shoulders and giving up. It's the decision to see reality as it is, not as your ego demands it to be. To accept is to say, I can't control what's been done. I can't control how others respond, but I can control how I move forward. That is strength. That is maturity. That is freedom. Acceptance doesn't remove pain. It removes resistance. And when resistance fades, you stop bleeding energy into things that no longer serve you. You begin to focus that energy into the present, the only moment that ever truly existed. You start to realize that most of your pain came not from the event itself, but from your refusal to accept it. When you accept reality, the fog lifts. You stop trying to rewrite the story and instead start living the next chapter. That's what it means to return to peace. Not through perfection, but through surrender. 5.5. The power of simplicity. We live in a time of noise, constant stimulation, endless comparison, dopamine floods at every turn. And when you're caught in that, you start to mistake complexity for meaning. But complexity is the enemy of peace. When you simplify, you begin to see clearly. You realize you don't need more. You need less. Fewer obligations, fewer distractions, fewer false expectations. You stop running from silence and start to embrace it. Because silence is not empty. It's full of truth. When you simplify, you regain sensitivity to what matters. The sound of your own breath. The gratitude for another sunrise. The small acts of integrity that build a life of substance. The mind wants chaos. The soul wants peace. So stop feeding the mind and start nourishing the soul. Returning to the basics isn't regression. It's refinement. It's not about doing less. It's about doing what actually matters. 5.6. Control what you can, release what you can't. At this stage, wisdom becomes simple. Control what you can, release what you can't. Control your habits, control your thoughts, control your environment, your time, your focus, your reaction. That's where your power lives. Release everything else. The people who won't understand, the outcomes you can't predict, the approval you'll never get, the apologies you'll never hear. Those things were never yours to control. Every moment you waste trying to fix them is a moment stolen from your evolution. You must remember, peace is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of control where it counts, and surrender where it doesn't. When you master this balance, you become untouchable. Because nothing outside of you can break what's in alignment within you. 5.7. The warrior's stillness. The true warrior doesn't live in constant combat. He trains for chaos, but he also masters stillness. There's a time to fight, and a time to sit in silence, to breathe, to observe, to listen to the quiet voice that guides you deeper than logic ever could. Stillness is not laziness. It's strategy. It's how you sharpen intuition. It's how you hear the truth beneath all the noise. When you learn to sit with yourself without distraction, you discover that peace was never gone. You were just too loud to hear it. You start to realize that the greatest victories don't come from conquest, but from control of self, from the ability to stay grounded while everything else spins, from the courage to remain calm while the world screams chaos. That is mastery. That is the highest discipline of all. 5.8. Closing reflection. You've carried guilt. You've faced your demons. You've spoken your truth. You've built discipline through fire. Now this is where you rest, not in laziness, but in presence. Let go of what you can't control, forgive what cannot be fixed, and come back to the simplicity of being human. Drink water. Breathe deeply. Take one deliberate step each day. No more overthinking. No more chasing ghosts. No more rewriting history. Because life isn't lived in the storm. It's lived in the stillness that follows. And in that stillness, you'll finally see that peace isn't something you find. It's something you allow. When you release control, when you return to the basics, you become aligned with the rhythm of life itself. No more chains. No more illusions. Just breath, purpose, and forward motion. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. And from that presence, everything you've been fighting for will finally find its way back to you. At last, we've walked through the fire. We've faced the guilt that once suffocated every breath. We've torn open the silence that hid our shame. We've dismantled the illusions that made us slaves to our own thoughts. And we've transformed the pain that once broke us into the discipline that now defines us. This is the point where most people stop, where they confuse exhaustion with completion. But this is only the beginning. Because freedom isn't found in one revelation. It's not in one apology, one act of discipline, one moment of courage. It's in the constant practice of everything you've learned, day after day, moment after moment. You faced the guilt. You stopped running from the reflection that haunted you. You understood that guilt wasn't meant to crush you. It was meant to wake you up. You learned that pain, when faced with courage, transforms into wisdom. You spoke your truth. You learned that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's purification. You spoke not to be forgiven, but to be free. You let go of the need for others to understand, and in doing so, you began to understand yourself. You challenged the illusions. You stopped believing the ghosts your mind created. You questioned every thought, every assumption, every imagined judgment. And you discovered that most of your enemies were just reflections of your own unhealed fear. You turned pain into power. You took everything that once paralyzed you and turned it into structure. You let discipline rebuild the parts of you that guilt once destroyed. And through repetition, through quiet, relentless effort, you began to earn back your own respect. And finally, you released control. You stopped trying to rewrite the past. You stopped trying to manage what was never yours to hold. You returned to the present moment, to the basics, to breath, to stillness, to gratitude. You found peace not through control, but through surrender. This is what it means to be free, not unscarred, not unbroken, but unshackled. You are not the mistake. You are the lesson that rose from it. You are not the pain. You are the discipline that mastered it. You are not the guilt. You are the wisdom that transcended it. From this point on, your past no longer defines you. Your choices do. And every choice you make in alignment with your truth weakens the chains that once held you. So breathe, stand tall, and remember, you've already survived the worst parts of your story. Now it's time to live like it. Not as the prisoner of your past, but as the architect of your future.